There's an old adage in the law that one who represents himself has a fool for a client. That sounds pretty conceited coming from a lawyer, I know. And while there are various ways that you can get dunked on if you don't know legal procedure and things like that and why you should hire a lawyer, I think the adage gets more basically to the fact that when you're representing yourself, you lose all objectivity. You are emotionally and financially invested in everything that happens in that case in a way that your lawyer just isn't. Sorry. Pro se is the Latin word for in one's own behalf, and pro se is what we call someone who represents himself in a civil case in Arizona. And for a while at my firm, I had the I had the moniker of the pro se whisperer because I'm generally pretty laid back, and my approach with pro se plaintiffs, because I know every little thing is personal, is to listen to their story, try to talk to them objectively about my client's position, and hope to find some common ground where both parties can be happy or at least not mad enough that they can move on with their lives. And for the most part, for people that are reasonable, that tends to work. But I'm not here to tell you about those kinds of pro se plaintiffs. The first pro se plaintiff I want to talk about, I'll call him Tom. Now, I'm changing their names for reasons that will become eminently apparent. So Tom filed a lawsuit against my client. It was an employment discrimination case, and I always make an introductory call to just basically introduce myself, get a feel for who the pro se plaintiff is. And I knew right away that Tom was highly intelligent, but I picked up that he was a little quirky and odd. Now, there's something you should know about me before I go any further in this story, which is that I love quirky and odd people. In fact, my wife has said, if I ever lose you at a party, I'm going to find the weirdest person there and you're going to be talking to them. So Tom and I hit it off pretty easily. We developed a good rapport. But Tom also is kind of prone to conspiracy theories and kind of woo-woo cosmic connection sort of stuff. So shortly after I started that case, Tom did a background check on me. He also had his private investigator's license. So he did a background check on me. He didn't find much, but he thought that it was important and was a connection that we had both lived on the East Coast and the Midwest and now the Southwest. Albeit at different times, we both lived in zip codes that roughly matched each other. And that was important to him. And you know what? I let him believe that that was some cosmic connection because it furthered our rapport, and let's get the job done. The background check also revealed my very first email address, which in 1998 I chose chickmagnet55 at Hotmail. There were apparently 54 other chick magnets before me. I was the 55th. And he copied that email address. I still didn't have access to it, but my client saw the email, and he's like, what's that all about? And I'm like, well, it was my first email. So the client thought that was hilarious and started calling me Mr. Magnet for the rest of that case. The other thing that Tom did is that he called me once and he said, I have a concern, Roscoe. And I said, okay, what is it, Tom? And he said, I think your client is parking cars in such a configuration in my neighborhood that no matter where the sun is in the sky, it's reflecting off of a mirror or a windshield directly into my house. I said, Tom, I assure you, while your case is important, they are not going to those links to drive you crazy. He's like, okay. Another day I showed up and I clicked on my email and there's just a huge photo of bare, hairy feet with long white toenails. They were Tom's. And he said, Roscoe, my toenails are white. I've looked it up and this could be a symptom of arsenic poisoning. Now, Tom displayed a rare case of objectivity there because he said, I don't know if it's your client or my wife, but this concerns me. By the way, my assistant is copied on all of these, so she's loving it, you know. Oh, hey, look at that feet, you know. Tom and I resolved the case, and I don't know if his wife actually was poisoning him, but we were at least cosmically disengaged after that. So I'm riding a high after Tom. I'm the pro se whisperer. Who's your pro ses? I'm telling my colleagues, throw them my way. I can handle all the pro ses because I talk to them real, and my success speaks for itself. So I was riding high until Fred. Fred filed a lawsuit against my client. He said, hey, you fixed my vehicle, but the repairs are defective. Now, on those facts, I'm thinking, pro se whisperer here. I'm going to talk to the guy. Maybe we get him some additional repairs, maybe a refund. Maybe we pay for somebody else to do the repairs. This is easy. This is chump change for the pro se whisperer, okay? And it starts off okay. I have a pleasant introductory call. And Fred, too, highly intelligent person. He's a trained clinical psychologist. And then he starts doing weird things. So in my first conversation with him, just trying to make banter, I say, Fred, you have some colorful arguments, but I'm not sure they're going to fly with the court. A few days later, I get an email from him. It says, Roscoe, you told me I had some colorful arguments. I wonder what you think about this motion that I'm going to file tomorrow. So I click open the Word document, and every word is in a different colored font. It was like a rainbow barfed on my screen. So the pro se whisperer is going, this is weird. I like weird. I can hang with weird. I can hang with quirky. Colorful font, I'd like to see him file that with the court. On a technicality, it's going to get kicked out, but I didn't need to tell him that. He didn't file it. The next thing he did is, actually what I figured out about Fred is while he represented himself, he was no fool. This was not his first rodeo. This was not his first foray into pro se-ness. He was a professional pro se. He'd filed a number of lawsuits. And he figured out that essentially the squeaky wheel sometimes gets the grease. If you have the time and the dedication to make someone's life absolutely miserable, and by someone I mean me, meaning that every week you file 5 different things in bizarre fashion and the lawyer is trying to figure out, this isn't part of my daily routine. A lot of people would think if you have a pro se on the other side, that's great, right? You just get dunk on them all the time. No, they do weird shit. When I have a lawyer on the other side, I know what they're going to do. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that, and then the job is done. With a pro se, every day is the wild, wild west, and Fred started doing that. And so I had to get the judge involved eventually. And the judge started siding with me and sort of striking things that Fred had filed, and that made him a little more angry. So what did Fred do? He doubled down and added me as a defendant to his lawsuit. I mean, conceptually, I can't be the lawyer questioning witnesses and then getting on the stand as a party, right? That's confusing for a jury. So that might have been a way to get me off the case. But at that time, he also tried to set my deposition. He wanted to depose me badly. And I told him, number one, I'm going to get myself removed as a party to this case. But number two, the date you chose, I'm out of town. I'm on vacation. So a few days later, I get a letter from Fred, and it's on his letterhead, which I think he just created for this purpose. It was like word art of a thinking brain, clinical psychologist under his name. And it started off, Roscoe, welcome to my world where the healing begins. Pour yourself a cup of tea, take some deep breaths. The legal world is too angry. Calm and peaceful waters. Let's have a little therapy session. Fred made me angry, ruined my vacation. Deep breaths. I mean, this is all written out. So I'm reading this like, okay, this is interesting. Eventually the way, he didn't get to add me as a defendant. He didn't get to depose me. That made him really mad. And he got so frustrated with the court ruling against him that he filed something one day. I noticed it. It came up in the docket. It was called a dying declaration. Okay. For the non-lawyers in the audience, I'm going to get nerdy for a minute because this is hilarious to me. A dying declaration is an exception to the rule against hearsay. How many people have heard of hearsay? You probably said, oh, that's hearsay. Okay. Hearsay is basically anything that's said out of court that you're saying is true without the person there to testify. It's not admissible. You can't say so-and-so said this. They have to be under oath saying it in the court for it to matter. There are exceptions, though. One of them is if you're literally about to die and you say something and someone hears it, that can come in. That's a dying declaration. I'm shot. Jonathan Grinder shot me. That could come in as evidence that Jonathan shot me. Okay, so Fred files a dying declaration. I'm like, what is this? There's no hearsay going on. So I open it up. It's Fred telling the court that I have frustrated him so much that he's going to drive to his home state and commit assisted suicide, physician-assisted suicide. And in that he says, Judge, you run a clown court and Mutz must be the court jester. So that was hilarious to me. But he didn't, spoiler alert, he didn't do that. It was all performative. But eventually the case took kind of a turn because he got so frustrated that he started making not veiled threats, but overt threats. He said things in pleadings like, I'm a veteran and I've picked up a gun to defend my rights before, and I'll pick up a gun to defend my rights again. And of course I raised that with a judge. This is outrageous. Judges are very nice to pro ses. They basically say, don't say that kind of thing. But there were a lot of nights where I left work and I scanned for Fred's vehicle. And I was worried I wasn't going to come home. It wasn't so fun. It wasn't so fun to be the pro se whisperer. And in fact, I think I didn't want to be that at all. One of my colleagues, though, to end on a little levity, he was so tickled by the dying declaration and that I was the court jester. He took my firm headshot and he had a digital artist put me in full jester regalia and gave it to me as a gift. So it hangs in my office. There I am, the fool, formerly known as a pro se whisperer.